step recovery in Colorado. I'm also a person in long-term recovery from the disease of addiction, and that addiction took me to a place of homelessness for over 2 years. And I came from an upper middle class family that did not use drugs and alcohol, great values, great opportunities, college educated, and was one of the people that started using marijuana at age 13, which eventually opened the door to psychedelics, which opened the door to cocaine, which opened the door to crack, which opened the door to losing everything, right? The thing that is important is that I had to be accountable for my own recovery. You're also going to see, as my presentation will indicate, what happens when you start using marijuana at 13. You also are probably going to see what Ben referred to, that not everyone should be a speaker. And so I'm going to apologize for those things in advance. I want to start by thanking Kevin, Luke, and the SAM team for the work they do and for hosting this conference. I also want to thank board member Steve Millett, without whom I would not be where I am today in this industry, providing help to other people. Thank you, Steve. So, again, not the right way. Our program gives men with nowhere else to turn the opportunity to overcome the consequences of addiction through a program that's based on sobriety, work, accountability, and community. And as you can see, accountability is one of our primary core principles. We are helping homeless men that have lost everything. We provide a robust addiction recovery, workforce development, and career counseling, and a life skills training program in a long-term facility that is geared to get the individual to rebuild their life and transition to independent, safe, sober living where they can be productive and contributing members of the community. So what does that mean? Right? Who are these people? Right? We've all seen this individual on the side of the road. Right? How does that make us feel? Well, for me, I'm conflicted. I'm embarrassed. I feel uncomfortable. Right? I want to help, but if I give this person money, are they going to use it for food or shelter, or are they going to use it for drugs and alcohol? So, again, I'm conflicted. And why does that matter? 770,000 people are experiencing homelessness in the United States. It's more than 18% growth over the 2023 numbers. Right? A study of the Conference of Mayors found that 25 cities shared their top reason for homelessness was substance use disorder. Right? And a number of other reputable organizations have data that proves that as well. And that's a lot of people that are on the street because of addiction. Right? The great thing about my presentation is you've already heard a number of people, a lot smarter than me, define what I'm about to say. The disease of addiction. You heard Kevin and Dr. Weiner describe it very, very well. You've heard how that chemical cycle and that behavioral reward system in our limbic brain takes away the ability for the prefrontal cortex to make logical, rational decisions, right? And we make what appears to be bad choices, right? And because we make those bad choices and we do these things despite the consequences, there's a stigma that even today still surrounds the disease of addiction. And because of that, I have these feelings of guilt, embarrassment, shame, fear, right? And so as the addict, I have these defense mechanisms, these compensatory behaviors, lying, blaming, pointing the finger, deflection, avoidal, isolation, right? Anger, all of these things because I feel horrible about myself and I don't want this to be my fault, right? And once I enter into the recovery process and my mind and body become free of the compulsion, craving, and obsession to use drugs and alcohol, all of those consequences become very clear to me, right? So I'm still embarrassed, ashamed, right? In fear, angry. And so I still use those compensatory behaviors. I'm still making excuses, I'm still deflecting, I'm still lying, right? And this behavior translates to all areas of my life, right? Along with that comes a social narrative that's been created around trauma, mental health, the cost of housing, societal upbringing, and yes, those things are directly correlated in many, many cases, and they need to be addressed. But I cannot use those as excuses anymore. Just like someone that got cancer or diabetes wouldn't say, it's not my fault, this is unfair, I'm not going to treat myself, right? And so accountability is critical to the recovery process. You heard Tom talk all about this. You heard Dr. DuPont talk about this last night at the dinner, if you happen to be there, when he talked about the peer assistance-based programs in which doctors were holding each other accountable for long periods of time, right? And then I had to take personal responsibility, and I could not blame or point the finger at anyone anymore. And recovery is about a behavioral change. There's a difference between abstinence and recovery. Abstinence is just not using. Recovery is about a full behavioral change, physical, mental, and spiritual. I am becoming a different person than that one that was slave to drugs and alcohol. Right? And like every facet of our lives, choices, actions, and behaviors have outcomes. Positive outcomes are rewards, negative outcomes are consequences, right? And we all see that at work, in our family, if we don't pay our taxes, if we speed, right? There are outcomes for our behaviors. Same thing with those in recovery from the disease of addiction. We need to set boundaries, uphold those boundaries. We have to set goals and expectations that are tied to results. We can't accept finger pointing, blaming, or excusing. And we've got to call out that compensatory behavior as we see it, right? But we can do this in a polite, professional, and compassionate manner. Accountability is often mistaken to be punitive, and it is not, right? It's what, right? When you're with your children, teaching them and holding them accountable, you don't consider that to be punitive. You consider that to be education. You consider that to be your responsibility. And any of you, I'm not sure how many of you, besides probably Tom Wolfe and Ben Court and myself, that have spent any time in jail know that the officers are extremely polite. Yes, sir. No, sir. Right this way, sir. Never are they angry or demeaning, right? They're the height of professionalism, and we can behave in that manner as well, right? But we have to hold the person in recovery accountable, right? We talked, you heard all day yesterday and some this morning about how accountability is beneficial to recovery, the enhanced recovery outcomes, the personal and societal benefits. And so, where are the, the accountability needs to be about more than just the individual, right? We as the providers need to be accountable, and those policymakers that are making decisions about treatment, funding, recovery, also need to be accountable. And they need to be consistent, right? And there are a lack of uniform accountability measures in our policy making. There's limited legal and policy support for ongoing monitoring. Dr. DuPont said it so well last night, right? That doctors coming into recovery had to go to treatment for 90 days, and then they had 5 years of accountability monitoring, counseling, drug tests, and 12-step meetings. They were required to do that, and 95% of them were still in recovery when NIDA followed up with them years later. We know the economic and social cost of unaddressed addiction. We've heard about it from a number of our speakers. Just in 2018, which was the most recent study I could find, $740 billion with a B, dollars, and we know that's only gone up. The social impact, you've heard the families talk about the collateral damage. Many of you have friends, family, co-workers, right? You see it on our streets every day. So, successful models of accountability and recovery that have been proven. Drug court. I am a product of drug court, right? When you are held accountable, it works, right? Traditional sober living environments, and I don't mean the for-profit ones, that as long as you or your parents or your insurance company can keep paying, they'll let you relapse as many times. I'm talking about the old Oxford House model, in which there was peer recovery, regular drug testing. You had to go to meetings, right? And the recovery-oriented systems of care model, the true model that speaks to peer recovery coaching, recovery support services, and case management to help an individual stay on the path, right? So what are some of the policy recommendations that I'm suggesting? Implement mandatory accountability frameworks. Strengthen drug court and similar programs. Create financial incentives for accountability to the providers, but also to corporations, because that's what corporations do, right? How do we have corporations join the addiction recovery process and legislate long-term recovery support with a balance, with outcomes-driven funding, right? That is more than just, hey, we're going to send you to 30 days of treatment and, hey, we did our job, good luck, right? The recovery process doesn't end after treatment, right? It is a lifetime of recovery from this chronic illness, right? And you know who else needs to be accountable? Are the doctors and big pharma. We've talked about cannabis and the opioid epidemic as a business model for addiction. I'm going to say something that may not be popular, and I'm going to apologize in advance. Physically addicting MAT is a business model for doctors and big pharma, right? There are many medically assisted treatment models that do not get you physically addicted and do not cause euphoria or mind-altering effects if taken in quantity. And they also don't have street value, right? So I would ask you to consider that, even though we're told buprenorphine is the solution for opioid and opiate addiction. We need to be accountable as well. How do we know this works? Our organization serves 300 on average, 330 men a year in our 90-bed program. We're able to contact on average 79% of the people leaving our program, because of the relationship we build with them, they answer the phone. The most recent 3-year running average, 80% are still sober, 85% are still employed, 91 are independently, not government, housed, and 82% have rebuilt those healthy family relationships. What's the economic impact, right? We all pretty much know this from gloss over it, right? HUD estimates that the average cost to a community, conservatively, is $45,000. Our program gets people off the street, so we're saving that $45,000. On average, they get full-time employment that is at $40,000 salary. All that money is re-injected into the community. I'm paying taxes, I'm buying goods and services. Even if I put that money into a bank, right, the bank is using it for the betterment of the community. And it's an $85,000 economic impact per individual. So, based on the number of individuals we serve, that's $11 million a year. Right? We take no government funding of any type, zero. It's all private philanthropy. And our annual budget last year was $2.7 million. So the economic return of $11 million is over 400% to the donor. Right? The average cost to serve the individual was around $7,500. And this is all based on robust peer recovery coaching, addiction education, CBT groups, workforce development and career counseling, and life skills training to teach the individual how to take care of themselves and then hold them accountable, walk with them, but be firm in a polite and productive and professional manner, right? Our goal is to take this model to anywhere that wants it. So if you have any interest, here's my contact information. I'm sure our slides will be